we're going to get started right on the Bills. The Bills really combined a top 3 passing game with one of the most efficient rushing attacks in the league. You throw in another top 12 scoring defense. It sure looked like Josh Allen, the lead group finally was going to have to make that hump, right? That postseason hump. Sadly, they did not. It was the same Achilles heel as it always been, as Patrick Mahomes and the Chiefs sent him home in January for the 4th time in the last 5. I'm not even a Bills fan, and that hurt to type out. I do feel for the Bills fans. I'm sure they must not. They're not the fans of the Chiefs, right? And of course, last season's pain and misery doesn't change the fact that this once again has the looks of being one of the best rosters in the league. Okay, accordingly, today's goal is to answer, some fantasy-related questions around the Bills and whether or not they finally have enough juice to take down Andy Reid's evil empire when it matters. Okay, is Josh Allen the quarterback 1 in fantasy football? Right, last year he was quarterback 1. Sir, MVP of the football, right? Had a great season. Certainly had a good case for the honor. After all, Allen's career average of 22.2 fantasy points per game is the highest by any quarterback ever. Okay, that's his career average. That said, Lamar Jackson, I apologize about that. I was wrong. Lamar Jackson was the crown winner last year. Okay. In a large part to a spike in passing numbers during a year that Allen averaged, his fewest passing yards per game at 219. Now, that drop-off in counting numbers came with career best marks in QBR, EPA per drop back. So, other things are improving, but again, his passing yards per game did go down. The Bills' decision to really embrace the run did accordingly lead to, enhanced efficiency on the offense, I imagine, and through the air. You're strong in the run game, and, it opens up play action, opens up the deep ball. Josh Allen needs that. Allen still averaged a 22.3 fantasy points per game. He finished as quarterback 2. Demonstrating that, he was still more than capable of supplying fantasy fireworks, despite averaging, again, the fewest passing yards per game. Okay? Still, this change in offensive philosophy under Joe Brady, led to Allen being awfully reliant on his legs in fantasy land. Okay? Highest percentage of fantasy points to come from rushing among the top 20 quarterbacks in 2024. It was Jalen Hurts at 45%, Jaden Daniels at 35%, and Josh Allen at 33%. Okay? Luckily, Allen is a mutant as a ball carrier. He reminds me of a Big Ben running the ball, but obviously a lot faster than Big Ben used to be. Okay, combining that high-end speed and agility with a battering ram mindset. He's 6'5", 237, guys. He's averaging at least 6 carries per game during, each and every last season of his career. The last 2 campaigns have produced a whopping 27 scores on the ground. Okay, now this isn't thanks to a large part to Buffalo's willingness to, feature the tush-push more than any offense outside of Philly, right? Overall, Allen's 7 rushing scores inside the 5-yard line were tied for the 8th highest mark in the league last year. He and Jalen Hurts, who had 11, were the only quarterbacks with more than 4 such scores in 2024, okay? So what is Josh Allen's 2025 fantasy football outlook? What do we expect out of Josh Allen this year? The lack of any new high-end resources in the passing game, okay, with all due respect to Joshua Palmer, make it tough to guarantee a huge bounce back in terms of passing counting numbers in 2025. That said, the return of the OC Joe Brady and all 5 starters from PFF's reigning 5th ranked offensive line makes it reasonable to once again expect to be pretty good, guys. Okay, I think it would be okay to call it to finish inside the position's top 2 highest scoring quarterbacks. Even if his alien level ceiling might just be a bit out of reach and what this more conservative version of the Bills offense, I think it's still worthy enough to call him very, very high draftable. Okay. What will James Cook encore campaign look like? Okay. Cook had himself a hell of a season in 2024, working as the running back 11 in points per game on the back of 18 touchdowns. The 25-year-old looked like one of the best players on the field while racking up 134 total yards and 2 scores at Arrowhead in the AFC Championship. James Cook definitely wasn't the reason they lost. I think there's little doubt that Buffalo has themselves a damn good running back leading that backfield. That said, Cook actually wound up with 42 fewer touches in 2024 than he did in 2023, when he finished as the running back 19 in points per game in 2023. So he's improved off of just 42 less touches significantly. Cook's receiving fantasy points per game also fell off a cliff. They went from 6.6 to 4.4. So really, how did he produce more in fantasy land last season, right? Well, the answer is real simple. Good old-fashioned touchdowns, right? Regression? Luck? Look, I understand it's never easy to punch, the ball all over the goal line except against the wall. The will of 11 finely tuned athletic machines, right? But at the risk of being too big of a nerd, Cook's touchdown rate in 2024 feels awfully unsustainable. Okay. Cook converted just 2.3% of his touches into scores during the 2022-2023 season, which was 41st among 53 qualified running backs. But in 2024, did that improve? Yes, it did. Cook's 7.5 touchdown rate was easily first among 51 qualified backs. That mark is good for the 7th highest mark among any running back with 200 plus touches in a season since 2000. So again, Cook went over the limit, guys. He shot a shot. Do I see that repeating? It's hard to say. Again, Cook is really good at football. His average of 0.82 rushing yards, over expected carry, ranked 8th among all running backs, right behind Bucky Irvin and Jahmyr Gibbs last season. He's flashed the ability to kill defenses down the field as a receiver, even if drop touchdowns have become a bad habit over the years, because they have. There's little doubt that the undersized, running back has proven more than capable of leading a professional backfield. But man, Cook just become the 6th running back since 2000 to score at least 15 touchdowns on the ground with less than 210 carries. Okay? Those other running backs scored 2, 4, 7, 3, and 2 times the next season. They didn't even reach 8 touchdowns, guys. Cook leaping from 4 to 13 carries inside that 5-yard line certainly helped matters. And we shouldn't expect him to really be ignored around the goal line. But I think at a minimum, drafters should be careful about assuming 2025 will look more like running back 1 heights from a 2024 as opposed to a mid-tier running back 2 production from 2023, when the former stretch didn't really even come courtesy of a massive increase in volume. Okay, again, it was 42 less touches. This offense has seen more gelled out, more even evenly fielded, right? It's not more so relying on James Cook. It's not so much more relying on Josh Allen. Joe Brady has actually spread that responsibility out, it seems. Okay, so is James Cook a fantasy football fade in 2025? Cook finished just as the running back 22 last year, okay, indicating his workload didn't exactly match up with the corresponding production. Throw in ongoing disgruntlement stemming from the lack of a contract extension, right? And I haven't exactly been lining up to draft the running back 14 in that early ADP, okay? I prefer more guaranteed high volume from guys like Joe Mixon, Alvin Kamara, even if the best case touchdown upside probably isn't quite as high. Additionally, I love Ray Davis. I love Ray Davis as a late round handcuff, okay? The Bills didn't add any meaningful competition to the backfield all offseason. We saw exactly what Davis is capable of when Cook missed time during his time of injury stretch there. Davis did go for 23 touches, 152 yards against the Jets. Now, it was the Jets, but again, what has been the Jets' strength the last couple of years? It has been their defense, okay? We have to admit that. Will anyone truly stand out as a must-start fantasy wide receiver here in Buffalo? Okay, you got Khalil Shakir, Keon Coleman, Joshua Palmer, and Curtis Samuel. Okay, out of those three candidates, I'm going to leave Curtis Samuel off the board. Okay, so our three candidates, Khalil Shakir led the way with a solid 76 catches last year. Okay, just over 800 yards and only 4 touchdowns. Okay, continuing to provide all the sorts of, the yards after catch goodness as the offense's really go-to underneath option. He was wide receiver 37 last year. Okay, but he did earn a 4-year contract extension in this last offseason, cementing him really as the team's slot saving of the present, right, and the future. So this role earned him a team high 100 targets in 15 games last season, and he's accordingly projected to again lead the team in a raw passing game opportunities in 2025. So I think Shakir has a solid option, right? Next guy, Keon Coleman, appeared to be coming on strong, right? With his rookie campaign, came in at a 4-catch, 125 yards, and a 5-catch, 70-yard, and a touchdown performances week 7 and week 8 in his rookie campaign. Okay, but a mid-season hand wrist injury sidelined the second-round pick for 4 weeks. Okay, he would only catch 10 total passes during his final 7 games upon returning. He just really wasn't an inclement part of the offense. Wasn't missed, maybe. That said, Coleman sure seemed to earn Allen's, trust as a jump ball specialist. And he also displayed some surprisingly fun after the catch ability on his way to joining some pretty damn good company. Okay, to lead the position in next-gen stats yards after catch. The departures of Mac Hollins and Amari Cooper should solidify Coleman as a near every down player in 2025. He has a shot. Do I think he has a better shot than Shakir? Absolutely not. Okay, and then we'll get on to Joshua Palmer. Okay, Joshua Palmer recently took his talents to Buffalo in free agency thanks to a 3-year deal. The case for Palmer, is simple. He's a plus route runner capable of separating and winning versus man coverage. Something the Bills really haven't had since Stephon Diggs. Palmer's career average of 39.4 receiving yards per game, is a bit underwhelming considering he had the luxury of playing with a good quarterback in Justin Herbert, right? But his skill set plus contract should cement him as a starter in the 3 wide receiver sets this season. Okay. After that, the Bills boast a lethal 2021 depth chart, headlined by the likes of Curtis Samuel, Elijah Moore, and I can't remember say his name, but Shenault. He was more of a gadget player for the Jacksonville Jaguars. Okay, again, these guys in 2021 might have looked good, but we're in 2025, guys. While there are likely still some truthers out there for each, cheap guy, dollars in draft capital, according to Shakir, Coleman, and Palmer, will most likely make each fairly consistent full-time players in 2025. Okay, if you're a cheap at wide receiver, maybe the Bills are your best shot. Okay, which Bills wide receiver can we trust in fantasy? That's a big question right now. Okay, I think Shakir remains the best bet in full PPR formats and is plenty capable of returning to wide receiver 3 value at his wide receiver 4 price tag. Okay, I also don't mind Coleman or Palmer at their respective affordable price tags. What if a drop off from the defense or a natural progression leads to Allen's pass number getting more in line from what we saw the previous 3 years? Okay, Coleman in particular is someone who I've been made a habit of attacking in later rounds. He just turned 22 and could be a rich man's version of Gabe Davis when it's all said and done. Be that top guy. Take the top off. Okay. Next position, tight end. Could 2025 finally be the year that Dalton Kincaid makes that leap? Okay. The Bills seemingly used the 2023 first-round pick on Kincaid to get Allen his version of a Travis Kelce, right? While Kincaid's rookie campaign didn't exactly produce consistent fireworks, 73 catches, just below 700 yards, and only 2 touchdowns, was still a solid starting point. The team's lack of a true number 1 wide receiver in the aftermath of the Diggs trade, had many believing it was the second-year tight end's time to, lead the passing game. Or not. Mid-season shoulder and knee injuries really didn't help matters, but things weren't going all that great, even before health became an issue. The time he pointed at the Lions defenders and was cool and all, but listen, receiving stats in the playoffs was 3 catches, 1 catch, 2 catch. Didn't even have 50 yards, guys. Okay, and then was highlighted by a season-ending drop against the Chiefs. Okay, making it awfully difficult to be, overly high on the 2025 or the 25-year-old talent ahead of 2025. Now, Kincaid's underlying efficiency numbers weren't terrible. He actually demanded targets at an elite rate. But more of the same won't be enough to save the day in the future seasons, even if you can't fully displace, Dawson Knox from the starting lineup. Okay? To be fair, Kincaid's uncatchable target rate reflects the reality that it wasn't all his fault. Perhaps comeback season will be in the air in 2025, although it's more of a leap of faith to assume he'll completely displace Knox as the featured full-time tight end, right? Is Dalton Kincaid a late-round sleeper? Kincaid's high targets per route run and plus offensive environment make him tough to drop too far down the ranks. Okay, he's ranked between tight end 12 and tight end 15 from all the rankers at fantasylife.com. There's a fine enough price tag for best ballers in need of multiple players at the position. But I prefer the superior target ceiling of guys like Jake Ferguson and Evan Ingram at the cost when looking to simply secure one tight end for your redraft squad. Okay, what teams have produced the most consistent defenses in recent years? Well, you could certainly argue the Bills. After all, nobody has allowed fewer points per game than the Bills at 19.6 across the last 5 seasons, guys. There is some turnover to worry about. Von Miller, Rasul Douglas, are both still sitting on the open market at the time of this writing. Okay. Still, the defensive line could arguably be improved after Buffalo threw dollars at Joey Bosa, Michael Hoyt, and Larry Ogunbowale. Okay? Probably butchered that last one, but it's all right. Bottom line is, if I were a gambling man, and I am, I would bet on the Bills to again work as one of the league's more productive defenses. Okay? They remain a quality defense special teams pick for those into that kind of thing. I'm not a big defensive guy. I like my individual players to draft, but that's your guys' kind of thing. The Bills are definitely a solid option. Okay, what is my Bills 2025 prediction and hot take? The Bills lead the NFL in points per game over the past 5 years, while simultaneously allowing the fewest points per game. Lack of deep postseason success aside, this has clearly been one of the very best teams in the league. It'd make a lot of sense if they finally make it over that gargantuan Mahomes-sized hump one of these days, right? But I'm going to go out on a limb and say that this season will, in fact, be that day. I feel it. I really do. Okay? This has been the Achilles heel of Josh Allen for the last 5 seasons, guys. I think it's time. I think it's time we take that hope. Okay? My bold fantasy call this year is Keon Coleman catches double-digit touchdowns and returns a top 24 finish in Fantasyland. You heard it here first at the Marshall Experience.